Chris. Hey, Chris. Thanks for naming it. Yeah.
For the Hopkins Christian Fellowship. Good. The guy who's there is kind of wishy-washy, so they banned Chick-fil-A from campus last month. But yeah, that was sort of me fighting. Mr. Guys like, look, people could well can disagree about this. Why you should ban Chick-fil-A? Well, these bans were just because these Christians.
I think they get me out of the running because I made it to the last round.
Oh man, killing me.
That would have been interesting.
We got some of our best people. No problem. Denominations, social Catholics. Yeah. Yeah, let's learn.
Hey, how are you? Pretty good. We're doing a lot on this week over there. Kind of listening to other people. I know Mark, he said he's going to listen to me.
I don't envy him at all.
No, it's not a pleasant experience.
I had it done in one recently, and my whole face swole.
Really? I've gotten lucky because my brother's a dentist in North Carolina, and he doesn't do them, but he has a friend who's a superstar. So I've had him out and no problem.
What part of North Carolina?
Greensboro.
Okay, I'm getting married in Mount Airy, which is not
How are
far.
When?
October.
Great.
I won't be at the next board meeting. I'll be getting married.
Well, that's a good excuse.
I thought so. Best excuse there is, right?
That's a pretty part of the world, and that time of year it ought to be true.
It's where my fiance is from.
Oh.
Yep.
The Washington Blade just showed up. The DCK newspaper. So. Chris is a friend of mine, just to let you know.
I think that's who gets the same. Sometimes it is self-evident.
Donna. Yes. Recorder's there, and she's a moderator. Yeah, I'll start in just a second.
Yeah, I saw Mark last night. He said he wasn't going to be able to do it.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Dustin Siggins. I'm the Public Relations Officer for LifeSite News. We're thankful to the Institute on Religion and Democracy for helping us to put this event on. They've hosted, we've organized. It's a good partnership. A good interfaith partnership. We're not officially Catholic, but 22 of our 25 staffers are Catholic at LifeSite News. And one of our non-Catholics is actually Eastern Orthodox priest, so we're pretty close. The panel here is, we're going to be talking about a variety of different issues. Obviously, everyone here reads the news. Religious liberty on marriage, religious liberty on abortion, Planned Parenthood's harvesting of unborn children. And something that doesn't get as much attention, but did last week on Capitol Hill draw more than 100 people to a panel, was the issue of pornography and how that destroys the minds of young girls and young boys, and leads to issues like sex trafficking and to violence against women. co-founder of LifeSite News. Henry Weston is stuck on an airplane somewhere between two airports, so I'm taking his spot today. He was supposed to moderate, but Chelsea, who is the Evangelical Program Director for the IRD, is kindly taking his spot there. Two spots over for me, we have Casey Maddox. He's the Senior Counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom. His focus is today on abortion, religious liberty related to abortion, and the HHS mandate, which, as we all know, was supported by the 10th Circuit Court against a number of nonprofits lately. That's one of Casey's prime areas of expertise. Next to me, Dr. Barrett Duke. He's the Vice President for Public Policy and Research with the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission for the Southern Baptist Convention. And then we have Donna Rice Hughes. She's the President and CEO of Enough, whose mission is to make the internet safer for children and families. She will be our expert on pornography. And again, something that often gets ignored more than it should when people talk about social issues and cultural values is pornography. Turn it over to Chelsea.
Yes, well, again, IRD, thank you all for coming. We're just happy to open up our offices for this roundtable discussion and thank our panelists for being here. If you've never heard of the Institute on Religion and Democracy, that's okay. I'll tell you just a little bit about it. We are a faith-based ecumenical alliance, meaning we are interdenominational Christians who work together to monitor, comment, and report on cultural issues affecting the church. I serve as the Evangelical Program Director, so my job is to monitor evangelical denominations. I attend conferences and report on what's going on. We seek to strengthen the social witness of Christians so we can affect public policy, spread the gospel for the good of all. So again, we welcome you all. We'd like to take time now to start with Donna just to give about 3 to 5 minutes of an opening statement before we enter into our discussions. And we just want to make it known too that there are some media members here, but we also have a lot of expertise. I know many of you are experts on these issues in your own right, so we will open up for questions a little later on. But Donna, I think you can share.
Thank you all. It's great to be here. Thanks, Justin, for inviting me. And good to have you all here. And hope to get to meet after the discussion. Justin, as he said, asked me to talk about pornography and in particular the link to sex trafficking. Let me begin with pornography. First of all, how many have seen pornography on the internet? Accidentally. Okay, every hand should go up, right? Okay. All right. Well, the continuous invasion of extreme internet pornography has been called the largest unregulated social experiment in human history, and it has become a hidden public health hazard. Now, peer-reviewed science now shows that this pornography is fueling the exploitation of children, addiction, violence against women, divorce. Last year, 56% of divorces were caused by one or more of the spouses having an issue with pornography. It's not just a guy thing, it's a girl thing too now. And it also fuels prostitution, child pornography, and sex trafficking. All right? Anyone can freely access this material on the internet. Much of it, in fact, most of it now is not protected under the First Amendment. It includes obscene material that depicts graphic sex acts, as well as paraphilic types of pornography like bestiality, excretory functions, rape, and violence. And also, of course, there's child pornography, which is one of the largest growing industries on the internet. In fact, just a couple of years ago, there was a 774% increase in child pornography reviewed by the National Children for Missing and Exploited Children. Pornography sites get more visitors each month than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. This is big business. A Google analysis report shows that searches for teen porn have more than tripled since 2005. All right? And where does that leave? Child pornography. All right? Of the 304 porn scenes analyzed, 88.2% contain physical aggression, principally spanking, gagging, and slapping. And I'm sorry, this is uncomfortable, but this is just the reality. And our kids know it, okay? That they're going to be exposed to this. A Google search for bestiality just recently turned up 2.7 million hits. Like I said, child pornography, one of the fastest growing businesses online, and the UN reported recently that 1.8 million children are using commercial sex trafficking or commercial sex each year, and approximately trafficking, there is trafficking actually inside the porn industry. Many professional performers in pornography are actually sex trafficked into a hostile environment of sexual exploitation, forced labor, and physical abuse. Second, victims are forced to produce porn, victims that are actually trafficked. Traffickers will produce pornography of their victims to what? It's all about money, remember? Diversify their profit and advertise their victims for prostitution. And clients can also create their own pornography of their victims. For instance, in a study in the UK, women had their photographs taken by their traffickers and pimps while they were being gang raped. Not uncommon. This also happens in child pornography. Pornography, number 3, trains victims. Traffickers show pornography to sex trafficking victims to train and desensitize them to the sex acts that they will be forced to perform, just the way sexual predators use pornography to groom and train children. Pornography also drives demand, and this is a real key, especially when we get to policy. Pornography users often will seek to act out what they have seen in pornography. And like I told you before, the kinds of pornography that are out there, how many willing, partners of someone who wants to act out bestiality, rape, or torture, or anything else, don't want to do that? How many paid prostitutes are going to want to do that? So what do? They go to a coerced victim, a coerced trafficked victim. Let's see. Okay. Let me just say another thing about those Johns that are using trafficked victims. They're just like sexual predators. You cannot detect and disguise a predator. They could be doctors, lawyers, coaches, TV stars, you name it, right? One other thing, pornography also creates rationalization and validation for suppliers and commanders of trafficked victims as to how and why their sexually exploited criminal activity is acceptable. And I just want to make one last point that's not talked about very often. 1/3 of 10-year-old boys and girls are being exposed to porn. 53% of boys and 28% of girls are using extreme graphic pornography now in the United States. Children as young as 5 are imitating sex acts that they have seen in pornography. And courts are now telling us that they're seeing increased sex offense cases involving juvenile offenders rising. The offenders are getting younger, the crimes are more violent, and the children charged with sex crimes against children. 42% of those have been using hardcore pornography and then acting out what they see. And what I suggest to you is that this flow of internet pornography, again, much of which is not protected speech, is not being enforced in our courts, is training up the next generation of sexual predators, traffickers, and Johns. And I'll talk more about policy.
Thank you very much. Casey?
I'm Casey Maddox, Senior Counsel with ADF. And I'm obviously ADF is engaged on in a variety of areas, but it seems like everything these days is coming down to religious liberty, because we've historically been divided into teams that worked on, we had a religious liberty team, a life team, a marriage, and family team, and everything is now about religious liberty. In some sense, I guess maybe the thing always was. It's becoming even more evident today. Because if you haven't noticed, religious liberty is under attack right now. Just to give you a handful of examples of what we're seeing. Obviously, the risks that have come out of the Roundtable decision, but even before the Roundtable decision, with the things that have been happening around the country with for-profit businesses working all the way up to actual ministers being required to assist in marriages in violation of the conscience. The thing that we're told will never happen, except for the fact that is an effort to make it happen. And now public statements to the effect that yes, some churches perhaps may need to lose in fact keeping status. That was the within hours of the Roundtable decision call. People say that churches and other ministries should be losing their tax keeping status if they continue to hold to this wrong view on marriage. So you clearly have those risks coming out of that area. In the life arena, positive news from the Supreme Court. Just recently, in what we at ADF like to refer to as kind of the Wood case, and the rest of the world refers to as the Hobby case, combined together. We have the Conestoga Wood side of that. That is a real risk, and I would remind you if we back up, because we've been sort of slow boiled in the conscience issue that came out of the HHS mandate for a long time. We're now at a point where courts are wrestling with the so-called accommodation of the HHS mandate, whether for-profit and non-profit employers can be required to provide notification to the government that they don't want to provide this coverage, and the government sort of works around them and contacts their administrator and has the administrator provide it over their objection. That's the current answer for the administration on how to fix your conscience problem. In essence, what that does is it makes organizations like the Little Sisters of the Poor, the government's drug use. You're still required to actually provide people. People are still getting contraceptives through your insurance plan, in some cases for patients through your insurance plan. But it's not yours. You're just you're being required to make sure that that happens. You hire the people, you provide the insurance plan, and the government goes and puts those things onto your plan or directs them through your plan, in violation of the conscience. So it starts sounding very much like a situation we need to ask. You had your insurance policy with you at all times. Has anyone else had your insurance policy at any time? Because that's what's happening with the HHS mandate. But just to back up, as I said, we've been slow boiled, and we're now discussing that question. If the administration had had its way with the HHS mandate, there was no accommodation under the HHS. What you had was a very, very tiny exception. That exception was so narrow that only some churches would be able to qualify for that exception. If you said, I am a church, and therefore I don't want to provide abortifacients to my employees, then the government would have said, well, thank you. That moves us part of the way down the line, but we need to confirm a few other things about your church before we can determine whether or not you're free to dismantle. That's where we start. It's after years of litigation that we back the administration off of that court orders to where we are now, where we're debating whether the Little Sisters of the Poor and for-profit companies and others are still going to be required to sort of carry these drugs. Let me remind you too, these are things that, and this is the case really with a lot of these, perhaps all of these religious liberty issues I'll talk about today. These are not conflicts where the government has a real need and there's a real problem that needs to be solved. Right? This is a situation where the government is saying 99% of people, 99% of women are already using this. And therefore we need to force the Little Sisters of the Poor to do this. It doesn't make any sense. It's illogical, right? It's illogical unless you begin from the mindset that this is not about solving the problem. This is about imposing an ideology. And then it makes perfect sense. If you sort of step back and think, why does anyone care if the Little Sisters of the Poor are covering RU46 or I guess actually in this case Ella? If they're covering Ella and Plan B on their insurance policies, why does the government care about that happening? And I think the answer is because the certain segment of the population, certain people in the government's ear are very concerned with making sure that the principle here is served. And the principle is that everyone will bow and that you will cave to their agenda. And that includes even an organization like Little Sisters of the Poor, where you can't possibly imagine the circumstances that actually would be necessary. And this continues on to the last point I would raise, which is the California abortion mandate situation. Because we went through the HHS mandate and we're at the Supreme Court, and the question at the Supreme Court for Solicitor Verrilli was, well, according to your argument, wouldn't employers potentially have to be required to cover even abortions themselves, even elective abortions? And Justice Kennedy asked this question. And Verrilli had to say, well, there's like that now, right? Within months of him saying that, the California Department of Managed Health Care issued an order that reinterpreted a 40-year-old state law that required coverage of all, forgetting the actual term off the top of my head, but all necessary medical services, something like that. And they interpreted that to mean, after 40 years of dormancy on this point, suddenly they realized that 40 years later what they had actually meant in 1975 was all elective abortions have to be covered. The impact of that was that no insurance plan in California can be licensed now unless it covers all elective abortions. That means if you were a church and you were being insured through Kaiser or Blue Cross Blue Shield, on August 22nd, 2014, your insurance plan immediately started covering elective abortions. Now, there are constitutional problems with that, but even before you get there, there's a federal law called the Weldon Rule. It's been in law for almost 10 years now, and that federal law says that the government cannot discriminate. No government receiving federal funds can discriminate against any health care plan because it does not cover elective abortions, because it doesn't cover abortions. Well, it's hard to imagine much more discrimination than telling an insurance plan you can't be licensed inside the confines of the state of California. That's what they've done. We filed complaints on behalf of 7 churches and 7 other individuals who were also forced onto these plans. And the Obama administration's fact that, frankly, there are no facts to be discovered here. The law happened. Everyone agrees that this is what occurred. And the Obama administration has been investigating this now. It happened in August. Presumably they found out about it then. We filed complaints by September. And we're still waiting on an actual response from the administration to enforce a law that they're responsible to enforce. So when you are hearing then, and I'll sort of wrap this back around to Roosevelt to close, when you're hearing these questions about how, well, churches are not actually going to be attacked. You're not actually going to have circumstances where churches are actually forced to assist in same-sex marriage. I would just remind you of the California situation where there does not seem to be a mindset that we will stop this advance of an agenda at the church door. In California, at least, there seems to be very much a mindset that we will go right into the church and we will take tithe money out of the offering plate, pay for abortions with it, and the administration will stop it. So don't expect it to stop it. So that's your.
Sure. I was asked to prepare some remarks, so since I did, I'm going to share them with you. I was asked to talk about, share some opening comments about the questions of sanctity of life, religious liberty, and marriage. So I just have a little bit I want to share with that. Human life, religious liberty, and marriage all find their ultimate purpose in God's, in relationship to God's design. They're all related to God's design. As people of faith, then, we must do all we can to protect that which God Himself holds inviolable. So on the question of Planned Parenthood, which is the current question related to sanctity of human life, what we've seen in these videos is clearly sickening, deplorable, and even barbaric. We've called on professional leadership to investigate this, and if it turns out to be true, I expect swift and immediate action. Trafficking in fetal tissue is illegal. Those doing so should be prosecuted. Those babies are created in the image of God and should be treated with all the dignity such an honorable status deserves. On the question of marriage, the Supreme Court decision is outrageous. It is not based on the Constitution, but on the personal beliefs of 5 justices. There is no dignity clause in the Constitution, but there is a marriage clause in the Bible. It consists of the union of one man and one woman, illustrating the relationship between Christ and His church and fulfilling God's purposes. We must continue to affirm God's design for marriage regardless of what the courts say. And on the question of religious freedom, the Supreme Court decision holds significant danger for religious practices. I appreciate the justice's kind gesture that we should be able to continue to advocate and teach our religious beliefs. However, that is not the sum total of what religious freedom means. It is only freedom if you can order your life according to your beliefs. That's the whole point of the free exercise clause of the Constitution. If today churches, schools, and other faith institutions are wondering about their continued existence, as well as marginalization, individual Christians are wondering if they will be labeled bigots. In fact, I recently heard a reporter calling it religious prejudice when a Christian woman refused to continue working at a bakery that decided to cater same-sex weddings. We've called for the passage of what's called FADA, First Amendment Defense Act, in order to secure religious freedom. Even Jesus said he stands at the door of our hearts and knocks and asks us to open up to him. He will not force himself on us. That should help us understand just how important religious freedom is to God. God wanted to force himself on us, to force us to comply. And yet here we have government deciding that it has the prerogative that God himself chooses not to take. So we must continue to work for not only the freedom to believe, but also the freedom to act on those beliefs.
Justin, do you have any?
Just briefly on these topics. I think, so Lifesite News covers life and family and culture, and these issues all relate to that. And they all relate to what is best for the human family, each individual human, the human body. When it comes to pornography, obviously, what many women have described feeling cheated upon by their spouses, by their boyfriend, and whatnot. God effectively described how this affects the minds of people. And it turns them from looking at sexual relationships as a fulfillment of a longer non-marital relationship into just a simple sexual act where women are debased and treated as less than human. So that's just one thing very quickly on that. When it comes to abortion, John Henry, again, couldn't be here. He called for the resignation of Sarah Richards yesterday, Planned Parenthood CEO, because whether or not she's involved with the fetal harvesting, which may be illegal and certainly horrifying, she obviously can't control her subordinates. She has no idea what's going on if she's not involved. If she is involved, she should be on as well. Obviously, I think all of us here support defunding Planned Parenthood. At the very least, they should be in the free market, not in the teeth of the government. And obviously, we'd like to see abortion totally legal related to that. But for the short term, defunding Planned Parenthood would be a great start to clear off the housing incentive to move forward and put that on the government's office desk. With abortion, there's a long history of that industry harvesting unborn children. It's not just Planned Parenthood. It's not even just in America. In Ukraine, and they've decided to take 12-week-old babies. And we're part of the Lifesite movement, so I'm not just making this up. They're taking unborn babies and using them to make beauty products for women in Russia. And in the Netherlands, rich women from Britain can fly over there and use for the same reason of using unborn children for beauty products. And then just for fun, in Canada, they ship what they call medical waste, aborted unborn children out of Oregon, where last year Oregon officials were horrified to find that medical waste, unborn children being used in an incinerator to help save energy costs. So this is not just Planned Parenthood, it's not just domestic, this is an international issue. And obviously the left likes to talk about the war on women. Well, last year I discovered that Planned Parenthood killed one of every 16 children, 16 girls that would have been born in America. So one of every 16 were killed by Planned Parenthood, and they're, what do they say it's called? Care no matter what. I think, actually you put it on Facebook, I think. Car no matter what.
Slice off the E.
Slice off the E, and you have the Lamborghini that one that Planned Parenthood made a joke about yesterday. Moving on to marriage, as Dr. Duke said, the Supreme Court's decision was unconstitutional. But secondly, the government has a vested interest in what's called traditional marriage, but should just be called marriage. The government has a vested interest in seeing children raised in the best environment possible. Dr. Paul Sullivan's a researcher at Catholic University has shown that the emotional well-being of children is best in one man, one woman, lifelong relationships. And related to that, the religious liberty issue, a lot of people talk about the religious liberty problems here. I think the next few bits so very effectively. But it's not just an issue in this country. This is not a theory. What we're seeing in Canada, in Quebec, and I wish John Henry was here because he's been doing this for 20 years. I've only a couple of years to memorize. But in Quebec, they are now requiring even homeschool students to be taught this sexual ideology. And you're now the Supreme Court of Canada decided it's okay to teach your own ideology as well, but you must teach the government's view of relationships, even if you're homeschooling your kids. And there have been lawsuits brought in Britain and Canada against churches, pastors, and the rest. So this is not anything new. It's not just domestic. Yes, we have the First Amendment, but as we're seeing in Oregon, where the law says you cannot discriminate for the sexual orientation, whereas the Kleins at Sweet Pigs by Melissa, they had served this couple before. They chose to make a differentiation between orientation and the relationship itself, which actually started fitting with Christ's admonition to love everybody but hate the sinner, as he told the adulterer, go and sin no more. He also forgave her. So there's two sides of that coin that a lot of the media seems to miss. And I guess I'll wrap up by noting that one of the issues with religious liberty is the idea that, I think you're all familiar with Penn Live, how they said they were going to publish no more op-eds in favor of marriage. They clearly retracted that, but they've said that they considered traditional views on marriage to be equivalent to racism and sexism, to be bigotry and hatred. They retracted that, and then I got John Henry published there about a week later. That was fun. And talking about the harm to religious liberty of the Supreme Court's decision. But the big thing here is to show that this is not based upon hatred. It's not based upon bigotry. There are certainly people who are haters and bigots. But if you look at the Catholic Church, which is the biggest organization, not the biggest organization supporting marriage, this is based upon human nature. The support of marriage is based on human nature, but also what God wants for us. And if you look at what Jens Hellquist, a former activist of Canada, who's since passed away, was making these comments in 2009. Even though same-sex marriage had been legal in Canada since 2005, he said that his community still saw great harm in anal cancer, HIV/AIDS, depression, breast cancer, more than the rest of the population. So there is significant harm in same-sex sexual relationships that the media doesn't want to acknowledge. But it's, to be fair, it's not limited to same-sex sexual relationships. It's limited to sleeping around. It's related to if you're in the trafficking industry. It's related to anything outside of one man, one woman sexual relationships. One man, one woman for life sexual relationships. So that's where these issues are all interrelated, and it's often not really understood well. But they're all related to the long-term health of each individual, but also society.
Wow, thank you all. Right now our guests are probably thinking, this is a very broad spectrum of topics. How do I effectively communicate on the sanctity of life, on the dignity of victims in sexual exploitation, on marriage? So that's what I want to do. And for IRD, we specifically focus on Christians in the church. Last night, the ERLC held Capital Conversation. And something I believe Dr. Russell Moore said was, if we want to affect change when it comes to all of these issues, we need to start with our congregation. Dr. Duke, could you maybe start us off and explain to us what did Dr. Moore mean by starting with our congregation and not culture and not public policy?
I'm glad you were there. I was in the great event of the 240 facilities folks for our event last night. Both panelists all did a great job. Engaged, which is to engage in our culture right now. So needed to be engaged, but to be engaged in appropriate ways. What the panelists observed and what Dr. Moore pointed out especially is that we should certainly begin at home with helping folks understand just what's at stake here, why these things matter, and what marriage really is, what life really is about, and quite frankly, we haven't done that good of a job in our own churches at this point in helping our people understand the connection between faith and practice. So it's hard to imagine that we can go out into the public and really have those conversations effectively. We can't have those conversations effectively in the congregations. Plus, that would be the natural place to start if you want to talk about influencing the cultural
Southern Seminary last year. And it deals with pornography and its impact on children and the road to prevention. But I end it with the clarion call to the church and base that on 2 Chronicles 7:14, which we all know, all right? But God says very clearly that if his people are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their own wicked ways, then what's he going to do? He's going to hear from heaven, then what? He's going to forgive our sin, not all those other people out there, ours. And then what's he going to do? He's going to heal our land. And so when we have sexual brokenness inside the church, how do we expect anything different than what we're seeing? And we know, from what I told you, that pornography itself, and most of this is not protected speech. We can't even get the laws enforced. We don't have to have public policy on that. We can't even get them enforced. But look, people are suffering in silence, and I am not suggesting that anybody who was struggling with sexual sin, sexual immorality, needs to be dragged into church discipline or anything else. What I am suggesting is that we have the heart of Jesus, like you were referring to when the woman was dragged to him, caught in the act of adultery. Who was in that picture? There was the person who was sexually broken, represented by the woman. All right? And how did Jesus treat her? Not with condemnation, but with love. He brought her into the light. And then who else was in that picture? The condemners. And where were they? They were inside the church. How can people come into the light, especially within our congregation, if there are people inside the church that are pointing the finger and saying so? And then who else was there? The passive lookers on that just, not my problem, not my issue, not my kids, not my husband. Okay? So we all, I believe, have a place to repent there. And this is first and foremost very, very important. And recognize that these issues, particularly with pornography, are things that can happen quietly and in silence. And it's happening in our culture. Over 50% of our Christian pastors are struggling themselves. So we have to recognize this. And the Lord really showed me this a number of years ago. Because every piece of public policy in the 90s, we helped get this catered to pass. And most of them went to the Supreme Court yesterday. All right? And finally I said, what gives here? It's like lack of that. It's like people. We have got to start embracing this inside our own communities with love and with light and loving each other, helping people who are broken come into communities and into programs.
Jason, my next question deals with what we can learn from the Roe v. Wade decision and now using that with the Roundtable decision. We have a lot of positive news coming out of ruling on abortion clinics, but we don't see that with the marriage decision. So not all of us are legal minds. So what can we know about Roe v. Wade and the ramifications that we can use practically in our own community? How can we educate our church friends?
I think that's an excellent question because there's a lot we can learn, I think, from Roe and the immediate aftermath of Roe for abortion law, which some people have called the Roe v. Wade of marriage, right? What is the Roe v. Wade of marriage? And we're concerned about what the Roe v. Wade of marriage does for religious liberty, and it's logical to look at what Roe v. Wade say about religious liberty. I've written a piece before where when I have pointed out the fact that Roe v. Wade is in fact has some very positive language on religious liberty in it. And so when you hear people talking about upholding Roe v. Wade and affirming Roe v. Wade, that is in tension with things like the other side in the Hobby Lobby case, or folks who would like to require churches to pay for abortions. And just a couple of examples. In Roe itself, one of the concerns that was raised was that if we legalize abortion, then doctors are going to be forced to perform abortions. That's going to be the natural consequence, right? Which sounds exactly like what you've been hearing in the big concern about marriage decision. So in Roe, this is the court, in an effort to try to forestall that concern, wrote these words. It said, first of all, they raised this concern, but we don't think that's a real concern, and the reason we don't think it's a real concern is that there's no real risk that anyone is actually going to be forced into medical professionals to perform abortions. That's a far out possibility. Why violates his good medical judgment, neither physician, hospital, nor hospital personnel shall be required to perform any act violative of personally held moral principles. And that was the end of the quote. There's no language in that quote from the AMA House of Delegates at the time of Roe v. Wade that said, but you need to refer them, or you need to contact someone else and arrange for an abortion to occur, or anything of that nature, right? And the consequence of that is, coming out of Roe v. Wade, you didn't have the pro-life folks, to the extent that there was very much of an existence of a pro-life force other than AUL. Let's see, we have AUL here. But you didn't have the mindset was not, well, what small sliver of religious liberty can we claim post Roe v. Wade? The idea was, look, we compromise to the extent where we're even admitting of a compromise. The compromise is, if abortion is going to be illegal, no one is going to be forced to perform abortions. And there was unity in that. All the way down to the fact that in what was called the Church Amendments, which is sort of a little-known federal conscience law, but in the Church Amendments passed later on that year, just months after the Roe decision, and here's a quote, 372 to 1 in the House, 92 to 1 in the Senate. Imagine, I would actually guarantee you could not get, I mean, think of the most, the least controversial bill you could possibly imagine, and then dumb it down a little more, and you couldn't possibly get 372 to 1 in the House for anything. Yeah, exactly. But this is a quote on the floor of the Senate, just months after Roe v. Wade. I believe the court will sustain that this is a federal conscience law being debated that would make sure that people were not being forced to assist in abortions or other things in violation of their conscience. I believe the court will sustain the judgment to protect individual rights and liberties, that in order to give full protection to religious freedom of physicians and others, it's necessary to extend an exemption to the facilities where corporations, where they practice their profession and their livelihood. And that was from the radical right-wing Senator Ted Kennedy in 1973. So that was the mindset then. And I think that's the mindset we should be taking now, is not what small sliver of religious liberty can we claim post the Birchfeld. The mindset ought to be, look, if we are going to have a culture in which same-sex marriage is going to exist, then we're also going to have a culture that fully protects religious liberty at the same time. And as I said kind of at the very beginning, the idea that all these religious liberty conflicts seem to be approaching, or culture seems to be approaching them these days, as if there's a real crisis of access. And that's hogwash. I mean, the idea that people are actually being denied some service, that they can't get some service in society because someone doesn't want to participate, or to limit it even strictly to the life contact, where this support for religious liberty is broken down over the years. We had a case several years ago where Illinois had decided that they would mandate that every pharmacist in the state provide Plan B. Right, and there would be no exemptions for that. And the pharmacist we represented was in fact down sort of a pipe stem with another pharmacy up front. So it was literally impossible to get to him without passing by another pharmacy that was perfectly happy to provide Plan B. This is the reality, right? There is not a crisis, an actual crisis here. We can actually protect religious liberty, and we should be looking to protect it fully, not debating about the possibility of maybe carving out some sliver.
I find it interesting that the latest poll, as far as citizens supporting the same-sex marriage decision, is now 39%, and it could be, I've heard that it's because Americans are realizing this tension that you talked about. There is a tension that you actually can't have your religious freedom or the ability to live and work according to your conscience and support same-sex
put it well about the life issue, which is, and Casey could correct me if I'm wrong, is something along the lines of you don't want me in your bedroom, you just want me to pay for what goes on inside of it. As a life issue, certainly I think that's kind of where this hypocrisy is going. On the marriage issue, it used to be even seemed to be just 10 years ago, back when I was still in high school, I guess, or in college, it seemed to be we want tolerance, we want you to respect our decisions, we don't want to impose upon you at all. And that seems to have been reversed. And I think what's going on with the clients, they actually didn't completely shut down their business, they now run it out of their home, it's an online business now. But I think what's going on with the clients is very instructive because they've been, shut down or knocked down, excuse me, by the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industry, I think is what it's called. And but they're fighting back. And we're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars be donated to them, to Barronell Stutzman in Washington. These people are getting lots of money from these people who are feeling like they're not empowered. And I think what you're going to see is a lot of people. I don't think you're going to see a backlash from the American public at large. I think most people, like I said, they kind of want to stay out of it. I don't think that the American people have radically changed on the views of marriage per se in the last 10 years. As the polling says, I think a lot of that is just that they don't want to be seen as a bigot or a hater, and so they kind of capitulated. But I think you're going to see a certain segment of parties kind of backlash. And I think as that happens, ADF got Barronell published in the Washington Post, which is very rare. Ryan Anderson from Heritage, which was the front page profile of him on what he's doing. I think you're going to see more of that as the religious liberty voices get louder, and as you see more people saying, there's a legitimate argument here, and I'm not going to stand back. I'm going to step up. Again, I don't think it's going to be across the whole populace, because we spent the last 50 years, me being Christian, not standing up in the pulpit and saying, this is what you need to talk about. This is where you need to stand.
Thank you. Well, we only have a few minutes because we did promise to fit an end one, but I'd like to get at least 2 questions from the audience.
Well, my question regarding, I think it's to Casey of the ADF. I noticed that in Anthony Kennedy's decision, not just the Oberfeld decision, but the many decisions that the court has used over the years, they keep invoking the incorporation doctrine of the 14th Amendment over and over again. Why doesn't anybody challenge that? Because best I can tell is that we can get rid of that, which basically says that all the Bill of Rights now apply to the states, then much of our legal troubles will go away. Why doesn't anybody get up to challenge that?
Well, I think it's been challenged. At times people have questioned it, but it's one of those things that's almost on the level of Marbury versus Madison. You can have a philosophical disagreement. You can think that look, the court should not be the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution, and it's still it's going to get you very little. I know that I believe Justice Thomas has in fact expressed some doubts about the incorporation doctrine before, but I think it's so deeply ingrained now that it's hard to imagine it absent a constitutional amendment. It's hard to imagine it with the court actually going that route. So I think it's sort of on the level of the law there.
Question now. So what's the game plan for social concerns on the issue of education and basically stopping what we saw in Virginia recently occurred back the sort of one was an empty, almost empty legal threat saying you're going to need funding. That one should be too hard to solve. But it seems like local communities are the next battle. And what's the game plan? Is there a game plan? How are we going to push back?
I think Canada, again, is instructive. I wrote a piece for the Federalist about this issue because licensing has covered this stuff for many, many years. And so in Canada, it started where we are in America, and they kept slowly encroaching, as I said earlier, to the point where you have homeschool parents being forced to teach their kids government's same-sex sexual ideology. In Fairfax, for everyone who's familiar with it, the Obama administration has reimagined what Title IX funding is for. Now they're saying that if you're transgender, then you have gender dysphoria, you should be Am I correct on that?
Well, I mean, those are the implications of it, because it would basically add transgender status to the gender identity to the list of protected classes on the, and so that those were the concerns. These are the things that are going to happen. But yeah, this is coming from the administration, and this is a situation where basically the administration, I think, knows it doesn't actually have the authority to do this at the time. The local school districts are well aware that the government really doesn't have the authority to do anything like this at the time. But it gives them both the near of legal authority that they need. They just pretend that the government, the federal government, has the authority to require you to do something, and the school district that wants to do this can pretend like it's being forced until they. It was interesting. I mean, at this school board meeting, they were kind of going back and forth between acting like they were being compelled to do this and they really had no choice, and then saying, but we're on the right side of history and all of you people are on the wrong side of history, and actually the statement made by the school board.
What did they say? You're all full of fear and hate. I think it was a 1-2 1 said. Casey, I should do this. Like you talked from the beginning. Casey's the father of 2 children in that school district. I was just there as a reporter. The parents who disagreed with the school board's decision, they ended up supporting it. 12-1, 11-1. They supported putting gender identities of the classes. The people who supported the school board on this were outnumbered at least 10-1. I mean, the room itself held several hundred people. There were more packing outside. And this is very common where parents oppose it and then they feel helpless. And the question is whether, do you change the school board come the election time? Do you remember to change it at that point? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel helpless? A lot of Christians, I think, are feeling they have to be bashed. They have to retreat. We have to put up our walls at the front door of the church. And yes, you always have to protect your family. And yes, you always have to make sure that there is a strong presence. Because as we all said, there's been 50 years of virtual silence on these issues. But you also have to be able to stand up and willing to stand up and courageously engage, which is something actually, if I may make a plug, we'll be discussing tonight on a different panel on how social conservatives can effectively engage the culture. And that's where a lot of this is going to be happening. In addition to the politics, engaging the culture, being creative, reaching out to, Chris Johnson from the Washington Blade is covering this, and we're really grateful for that. Because we have to engage with people we don't know what's going on. We have to have those point of views represented with us. I reach out as a reporter often to this region, because those opinions have to be discussed. Otherwise, we are going to see a lot of these things coming down to the edge on students and on parents of violating their rights.
Yeah, just a quick question. Chelsea mentioned some points about philosophy, which has been very interesting. It appears to have shown that there's a decline, slightly, but a decline in support. But one of the questions that really struck me was it said, and hopefully I listened, but the question was, do you support religious objections, but their right to refuse service to LGBT persons? And I just thought, from my view, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard anybody make that broad argument. It's the difference between, for example, Fairhouse Hudson, she served this guy Ron for 9 years. She didn't want to participate in the wedding. So I'm just wondering, is that going to confuse in the public conversation?
It absolutely is. It's very frustrating, and I think it's also very intentional. Because I think if you actually face the actual cases and the real situations that are actually occurring out there, then what you really have is the government saying, if you do not attend and participate directly, at least in some cases. Now, people, whenever you start saying this, people will start quibbling about, whether or not where the florist has to be when and what the cake decorator has to do at what circumstance. Back up. You have a videographer. The videographer has to be present through the entire wedding service. That's the whole point, right? They're filming the wedding service. They then have to go edit the video and produce that. And you have the government saying, and a certain section of the population arguing for this principle, that if that person will not go and sit and participate in a religious service, then the government should fine them. Well, that's set aside the free exercise concerns. In any other context. If you didn't know what the context is, what you're talking about here, right? Like, so someone has to go sit in an Episcopal church for a same-sex wedding service. You didn't know all of the context here. You just knew that you're being required to go and participate and sit while prayers are offered in the Episcopal church, and the government will fine you if you don't. Well, that certainly sounds like that starts encroaching on the establishment clause, even before we raise the questions of the exercise clause. But those are actually the situations that we're not dealing with situations where people are refusing to serve people who are because they don't like their lifestyle. Right? That's not what's happening. These are not clerks in grocery stores. These are people who say, look, I'm happy to participate in something. That's why I'm not. In this particular instance, and I think maybe to kind of wrap up here on what we can do to enact public policy, I think we have to tell stories. Because I think a large portion of the population wants to believe that what must have happened is that Baronel Stutzman must have been really mean and nasty. She must have started yelling at someone and chased them out of the store. And when you face the reality, so that they want to just believe that she must just not be like me. She didn't face this how I would have dealt with it. I would have dealt with it better, and then things would have been okay. And when you face the reality that no, in fact, this is a grandmother who had a long relationship with these folks and been serving them flowers for years, right? And very much wants to continue to be part of their lives and has no ill will toward them, just doesn't want it just a service, a wedding service. Then it hits you different. And I think if you need any more proof that telling the stories is what actually helps. A lot of us have known for years that Planned Parenthood was involved in trafficking baby cars. So I can write a blog on that all I want to. We have a video